Yo, hell yeah. Wyatt begins in like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yo, welcome to Wyatt. And I'm your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans. Woof, goddammit, woof, 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 woof. Hi. I said hi to all my YouTubers out there. If you like what you see, and if you like what you hear, just click that subscribe button at the bottom of your screens. I say it. Click it, click it, click it. I loves to click it. Yeah, I do. Hey, today's Wyatt, y'all, is a very powerful episode. Our special guest is Mr. Rick Clemons. He is the acclaimed, professionally certified and men's coming out coach. He's going to share his poignant coming out story. And then later, he is going to show us, explain to us how we can run out of that closet, live our authentic lives, and have the rich life that we've always wanted. So this is a special epi of Wyatt. So I say, let's start it up right now. So without further ado, Wyatt, I said Wyatt welcomes Mr. Rick Clemons. He's the acclaimed, professionally certified and men's coming out coach, international speaker, author, and podcaster. So Rick, how the hell are you? Talk at me.
Well, you just made me blush, number one. I mean, I haven't heard that in a while. People usually introduce me, I'm like, wow, am I all that? I guess kind of, yeah. I've had an impact in the world, so, but thanks, man, for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Oh.
So it's always fun to get to be, I'm behind the mic most of the times for my own podcast, and now today I get to be, I'm going to just sit back and eat bonbons and see where we go. So that's how we're going to do this.
Listen, man, I feel the same way. I really, really do. And again, I want to thank you for being on Wyatt. And, Rick, this is going to be an important show because, the holidays are here. We're in the middle of the holidays. And even though the holidays are supposed to be festive and joyous, we can slump into depression and just, feel like, So we can also talk about that. So,
well, holidays can steal our joy. Let's be honest about that. It's supposed to be the most joyful time of the year. And then by the time we put all the pressures on ourselves, it's like, this isn't fun. This isn't fun at all. So, but I'm glad we're talking about this because there's so many things that happen this time of year. And then especially as gay men, the pressures we put on ourselves is a little bit insane. So,
and those unrealistic expectations. My friend, you have more than 25 years of experience in personal development. And one of your statements moves me, and this is it, and I quote, I leveraged my status as a late bloomer coming out of the closet at 36 and stepping into entrepreneurship at 43 to lovingly kick other gay men in the ass to thrive in their own lives without excuses, fears, and apologies, professionally and personally, end quote. My question is this: why do some gay or same gender loving men find it challenging to thrive in their own lives without those fears, apologies, and excuses?
Well, I think, Wyatt, for the most of us, we've been, quote unquote, I'm going to use a word I don't like using these days, groomed to believe this is how we are supposed to show up in the world. So even as we move through our coming out journey and we come in more to our truth and our authentic, space of who we are, there's always that pebble in the shoe. Like something will hit and they're like, I'm not, and we don't realize how deep those belief systems, those expectations run. I mean, I'm 60 years old and there are moments, I just had some of them recently, I'm like, wow, I thought I was well past this, right? But we don't. We carry these things with us because we've been pushed down and pushed down and pushed down to say, you can't be that. You're supposed to be this way. You're supposed to quit being such a sissy, da, 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 da. It doesn't even matter if somebody calls us a sissy anymore. It can be something that is so embedded deep within us that as much work as we've done, and yeah, I've been doing personal development stuff probably more than 25 years at this stage. And there's still those moments, man. They just hit.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely feel you about that. And it's crazy because they can just pop up at any moment, when you least expect it. And, you feel like you have it all together, but there are some moments that I guess they just kick in and you feel.
Well, they kick your ass. That's what they do.
Off kilter.
Yeah. And it's crazy because here's what I've learned. And again, I just recently had this experience once again. And I've learned that if I ask myself this question, and this was a hard question to finally get to really okay, I'm going to ask this question when I feel this, when I'm having that intuitive hit, or when I'm feeling my body telling me, hey, something's going on here, man. You need to pay attention. I ask the question, where is this coming from? Where is this rooted? Because sometimes it can be something that is so far back in the past that we don't even realize that's where it began. So for instance, I was visiting my parents over the Thanksgiving holiday, and there were moments, simple conversations, that suddenly I was a little 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old little Ricky. And I was like, where is this coming from? I'm a grown man. I've already, have 2 grown daughters. I've been with my husband 22 years, all these different things. And I realized there was the little pebble. The tone of voice that mom said something. It wasn't anything like, oh my gosh, you're horrible, but just that little tone of voice. And suddenly there I was. Now, did it prevent me from doing something? Not really, but it stopped and halted me long enough for me to go, where is this coming from? And interestingly enough, in one particular scenario, I actually sat there and traced it way, 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 way back to a moment that I had with my mom when I was probably 7, 8 years old. I couldn't tell you specifically, but I could see myself in that moment. I'm like, this makes sense. Now, here's the twist. When I have another woman who, she doesn't have to look like my mom, she doesn't have to 100% sound like my mom, but if they say something similar with those tones and in that kind of phrasing, I put all that projection onto that person and I become little Ricky with them. It's such an interesting thing to watch ourselves do.
Well, though, it's good that you were self-aware enough to understand where it was coming from, and you were able to analyze it and live with it. And also, too, shrinks will say that the child will always be within you. That little boy, that little girl will always be there. You just have to manage that person as an adult. Man, your coming out story is courageous. It's also instructive. Before we unpack that and talk about how gay, same-gender loving men can thrive in their lives, both professionally and personally, let's walk down memory lane because the Wyatt audience is nosy. We like to know your backstory, So where were you born and raised?
Oh, you sure we have enough time for this, man? No, I can do this.
Yeah, we do. You can do it.
So honestly, I was, I'm going to say a nomad child before being a nomad in today's modern times was cool. I was born in Colorado. Okay. We immediately moved to Napa Valley, California. That's the reason I have a wine bottle in my mouth most of the time. I was raised in the vineyards. We're there till I was in 4th grade and then back to Colorado. And then we kind of moved all over the place from there. Now, my dad was not in the military. He was a construction guy. So he would go wherever the building booms were happening. I was also raised as a Seventh-day Adventist, and for the most part, followed that path until I got to college. And then in college, I was already questioning things in high school. But then in college, I really started questioning things. And I also uncovered my sexuality in college. I mean, it had always been there. I mean, through high school, yes, I had my man crushes, but oh gosh, we're not going to talk about that, right? It was the late 70s, early 80s. We're not going to talk about this stuff, right? And it was there that I started to really go, okay, this is where I get to go unpack some stuff. And that kind of sets the tone for where it all began.
Well, your coming out process, for lack of a better word, is interesting because I believe you came out briefly at 19.
Yep.
But then you went back in. So can you tell us why you retreated? Why you went back into the closet?
A couple of major things. I was very sexually naive. I had never even had sex with a woman, okay? Doesn't mean I hadn't gone to first or second base with some girls, but really wasn't happening. And actually, the couple of times that it presented itself, I backed out really quickly. And then when I did come out, I was told you can't be that. I didn't go through ex-gay therapy, but I spent some time with the church pastor. And I was very naive, sexually, intellectually, but college was kind of opening up that intellectual think for yourself sort of side of my thinking.
Sure.
But all I ever wanted to do, and I'm going to just own it. I have a badge. I don't have it here handy. I usually I have a badge. It's called people pleaser. I wear it with pride. I take care of everybody but me. And that's why I went back in. I was like, okay, this will make people happy if I go back in. And literally, as soon as I graduated from college and had my first job out in the big bad world, I met my now ex-wife, did what I thought was, hey, this works. I like her. This works, all that sort of stuff. But the biggest piece of the puzzle while I went back in was I was petrified. I was petrified of my father. I was petrified of my church.
Right.
I was petrified of God. But the biggest thing, I was petrified of HIV and AIDS because it was just starting.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had a family member, my dad's oldest brother, who was one of the very early on victims of the HIV/AIDS crisis. And I stood there in his hospital room.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And I saw the whole thing unfold as I'm unfolding into me. And so imagine being young, ill-equipped, naive, sexually naive, intellectually naive kid. And I always say this, and because I haven't spoke to your audience before, I actually believe if I had come out, you and I would not be having this conversation because I wouldn't have known enough to be safe and protect myself. I would have come out from a rebellious space. Like I'm just going to be me and not knowing a lot about sex in general and sex with men at all. I probably could have really screwed up everything, but God willing, I didn't.
Rick,
and here I sit today.
That is so deep. It makes a whole lot of sense as well. But you finally came out at 39. I believe you said that you traveled for work a lot. Mm-hmm. You felt free. You felt free to explore yourself more. And you said that your life was unraveling. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I was in a company where, first of all, the company was very LGBTQ friendly for being in Orange County, California. In the 90s, that was a huge thing, number one. No disrespect for Orange County, but it's not the most open and welcoming, quote, let's just say, area in the country.
True.
I had figured this all out, more than figured it all out. The hardest thing to always admit, but I believe in being transparent, is I was never faithful to my wife. Never. I saw it as I'm going to go out. I'm going to get my rocks off. I can survive. Okay, go out, rocks off, survive. But along with that was shame, guilt, shame, guilt, shame, guilt. Because
So
of the
you
work
were
I did,
being
I traveled.
unfaithful
Oh yeah, being completely unfaithful in that marriage. But because of the work I did, I
with
could
women.
disassociate. No, with men. I was being unfaithful with men. Like, okay, I'm
Oh,
playing both
I
sides of the fence.
gotcha. Right, got
And
it.
because I could
Okay.
travel, most of what happened was happening all over the world. I mean, I was blessed to get to see the world, so that was one thing. I'm like, and the night that everything unraveled for me, I was actually in London. London, met a guy in a bar. Like, okay, and of course, what is the first thing he says? Oh, you want to go back to my hotel room? Well, not the first thing. We went and had a great night, dancing and all this sort of stuff. And I started feeling the aliveness. I'm like, wait, this is a little bit different than like, hey, wham, bam, thank you, sir, right? And then
Okay.
he said, you want to go back to my hotel room? Well, the first thing that crossed my mind is, oh, sure, why not? Nobody can see. I'm in London. I live in California. Who's going to catch me, right? But as I walked in the hotel, I'm like, okay, this is very familiar. We're just going to go up there. We're going to do the deed, and I'm going to walk out. And that was the night. There was no sex. I fell in love, and I fell apart. Because it was a completely different game plan.
Because it was more like a date.
The whole night.
If you know what I mean.
We had
we
had intimacy, but there was no sex. I mean, we kissed, we kissed
right.
and made out. That was a lot of it. And we talked and we talked and we talked. I mean, and I went really deep with this guy. No pun intended, guys. Keep it above ground here. But I was having really good conversations. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the piece that I didn't think was possible. I thought,
the emotional piece.
Yeah, the emotional intimacy piece. And that's why I say, I fell in love and I fell apart because I fell in love with the truth of what I could be and quote unquote with him. And 2 days later, I flew home. The entire flight from London to LAX, I sat on that plane and wrote down every reason I was about to turn my life inside out, upside down. But it was because I saw the glimmer of hope and truth. And that's when everything unraveled.
Wow.
It wasn't easy. Trust me. Whoa. But it was the best thing I ever did. Was it hard? Of course. Well, I tore a family apart. We've more than recovered. I have 2 amazing young adult children in my world. My 2 daughters are just amazing. They were very young when this all happened. Wyatt. I mean, my youngest doesn't even remember mom and dad ever living together. She was 18 months old when I came out of the closet. Just take that in.
Wow.
Actually, she was 9 months old when I came out. It was 18 months old when my husband and I got together. So, there's layers of trauma and movement and truth and growing and all this sort of stuff through that.
That's a hell of a lot to take in. And I believe you said in an interview that your wife, what she was more pissed about was the fact that you were cheating on her as opposed to the revelation that you were gay.
Yep. There was many things. I mean, all of it came to truth, but the thing that I remember her saying over and over the most is, I can't believe you cheated. I just can't believe you cheated. And that's a big thing for anybody who's caught in a cheating scenario. Many times the person who's being cheated on, it's more that piece that bothers them. I mean, yes, they're going to say it's the other person, all this stuff, but that's where it kind of all starts. The other stuff becomes the focal. Now, of course, being a quote straight man, cisgendered straight guy in a marriage, and then suddenly you do the pull back the curtain reveal, I'm actually gay. That's a tough one to take, whether you're a husband or a wife who's having that revealed to you. But at the end of the day, that first piece is usually the cheating. And then it's like, well, with who? Well, then that's the second big bomb, which that bomb is really hard to navigate around. When I'm working with individuals in my coaching practice, predominantly men who do come out late in life, I always talk about this is one of the pieces you're never going to be able to navigate around it smoothly, because Your spouse, your wife, she cannot compete with another man. She just can't.
Very, yeah.
Now,
Very
if it was
true.
another woman, man, they'll go to the arena. They'll lose weight. They'll put on, better makeup. They'll fit into dresses. They'll do anything under the sun because they know there's a fighting chance, woman to woman, to some degree, that they could make this work. There is no competing with a man because physically, number one, that's probably one of the biggest things. And then the sexual energy and emotional energy that comes from a same-sex attracted individual, it's sometimes very hard to explain. I'm much more attracted to men, period. End of statement.
Right.
They can't compete.
And, it doesn't matter what type of relationship it is. It could be heterosexual, it could be gay, what have you. Trust is the bedrock of any relationship. It's once that trust is broken,
yes,
the relationship pretty much falls apart. Even though there is love still there, if that trust is obliterated, that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. And it is. And it's been one of the things that I am not proud of by any stretch of the imagination. When I speak about this on stage, I always have somebody come up, maybe not just one person, sometimes it's several people, and literally read me the riot act for what a jerk I am. I'm like, well, I get it. I didn't say on stage that I didn't own that. In fact, I very blatantly say, I was a jerk. I was an asshole. I cheated for 13 years. I realized that. And I also uncovered each time my truth got closer and closer and closer to my reality.
Wow.
Again, I'm not proud of it, Wyatt, but it's my reality.
Well, we all fuck up. We all do stuff that we shouldn't do, and we hurt people. But you have to acknowledge what you've done, because you can't grow, you can't make any progress, you can't be a person with integrity until you own it.
Yes.
And that's the important thing. I mean, you can't take back what you've done, but when you don't own it, that's really nasty. And that's just,
It's interesting because one of the things I tie right with that ownership piece is I'm not asking anybody to forgive me. That's a bonus. If somebody forgives me for what I've done, that's great. But forgiveness, and then I heard this on a podcast that Oprah was doing on Super Soul Sunday, and it stuck with me. And then I kind of like, oh, that's what I've been trying to say all these years in some way, shape, or form. Forgiveness is more about you than the person you're giving it to, because forgiveness is giving you the pathway to move forward.
Right.
Somebody can acknowledge that I own this. I'm never going to ask them to forgive me for it. But by me coming to the table and saying, here's what I did, it's my own way of saying, now I forgive myself for lying and cheating and doing all that. And now I can move forward into being a better person because of it. But as long as that's all locked up, Wyatt, you're going to hold that and you're going to hold that, and it's going to cause you stress. It's going to cause you exhaustion. It's going to cause you health concern. It's going to be hard to own it and speak your truth. But man, the weight of the world and the veil that gets lifted and the mask that falls off when you finally say, this is me, this is what my truth is. I lost many friends. I lost friends who said, oh, well, I don't know now if I can trust you. I said, yeah, you probably can. I hope you will try to. But I said, I can also tell you there's nothing that I've said to you that is not my truth, other than this piece that you didn't know about me. As a friend to friend, there's no situation we've been in. There's nothing here. But for some people, that's a huge thing. Integrity is huge. And I live by it now. It's like my integrity is one of the things that I feel like I try to put under the microscope more than anything on a daily basis. And sometimes it hurts.
Right. But the great thing, Rick, is that you're using your experiences to help gay men. As a professionally certified coach and as a coming out coach, let me ask you this. I guess some of what I'm going to ask you is probably already transparent, but I'll ask anyway. What are the main issues that confront gay men that prevent them from coming out of the closet and that also prevent them from living their best lives, becoming their authentic selves?
It is somewhat obvious, but it's so obvious that sometimes we miss the whole point. We as gay men have been told, you're not worthy. We've been told, don't be a sissy, man up, don't cry. Okay, men in general have been told all those things too, right? But the moment that identity shows up, then we also like, oh, you're gay? Well, no, you can't be that. You shouldn't be that. Don't go there. So the rejection thing starts happening immediately in so many places. Not everybody's going to reject us, but man, those things that are the little, igniting fire of rejection, man, they stick with us. Mm-hmm. So then as gay men, we try to go, okay, well, to fit into this mold in my gay world, I need to be like this. Even if that doesn't feel right. Okay, I'm going to go hang out at the bars. I'm going to show up every Friday night. This is what we do. We party all weekend, da, da, da. And then Monday morning rolls around. We feel like crap. And what do I feel? I don't feel like I have anything more real. Now, I'm not saying this is everybody's experience, but this is an example of something I've dealt with over and over and over again in my work. Because we're trying to fit a mold, because what do we want to avoid? Rejection. We've already been rejected to the hilt. And so anytime we think we're going to be rejected, it brings us back to our wounding of gay men, our wounding of our sexuality, our wounding of not good enough. So let's step forward and try to be everything everybody wants us to be. And that helps us and that protects us from feeling rejection. And then it just becomes a wicked cycle. If you see somebody who jumps from guy to guy to guy, if it gets too close and everything's going really good, and I've heard this over and over again, yes, but what if it falls apart? Well, if it falls apart, it falls apart. But because they're so afraid of doing that, they'll reject first. If it's because I'm going for the promotion, getting higher up, it may be I don't want anybody to think I'm not worthy, so let's just keep going. And there's nothing wrong with success. I mean, I think success is an amazing thing to go for. But so many men, gay men in particular, climb those ladders of success, and guess what? They're still miserable. They've got money, they've got things, they go on fabulous trips, and then they wonder, why do I feel so empty? It's because they're trying to avoid that feeling of rejection.
So what you're saying is that they very well may reject success before they get it, because they feel that, for example, they'll fail at work.
Yeah, they could be
if they're
possibly
going for that
fail.
promotion.
Mm-hmm. Or everything becomes all about success, because if I keep climbing the ladder, everybody thinks I'm great. Climb the ladder, everybody thinks I'm great. Climb the ladder, oh, look at what Wyatt's done. Look at what Wyatt's done. Look at what Wyatt's done. Well, the more they can get that, look what Wyatt's done. Look at how great he is. I know that feeling. I mean, people literally were like, he's such a great dad. He's a good husband. Look, he's climbing the ladder. He's doing these things. I fed off of that. And I was absolutely freaking miserable. I hated what I did for work. I wasn't happy because I was in a marriage that wasn't my truth. Okay, I love my kids. If they were going to call me out on anything, that was a solid. I was a solid, yes. I think I was a pretty damn good husband too. But I was doing all that so I didn't have to feel the rejection of it. God, and even when I do my talks on stage about this, it's like everybody thought Rick was that really great guy. Look at everything he's doing. Why? Because I didn't want him to see the truth, because the truth would cause them to not like me. And then when I started talking about it, oh yeah, I was in full costume. There was the mask. Phantom of the Opera had nothing on me, boyfriend. I'm telling you. I was behind that mask in a big way. But it wasn't comfortable. Because guess what was happening, Wyatt? The mask would go on. I'd go have my little hookup. The mask was off. I'd experience that little bit of, oh, this is what it could be. And then just like pulling the pants back on, putting the junk back in the undies, all that sort of stuff, the mask came back on. Let's make it, okay, mask is on. Let's go back to life. Absolutely miserable.
Well, wow. And I've heard stories like that before. So, Rick, what the hell can we do as gay SGL men to break this cycle? Because I think you have like a 6-step.
Yeah, there's one thing in particular is love our own community. Mm-hmm. Let's like really start showing each other love. When we tear each other down, and I'm not saying if you don't like somebody because, you know, they're not 6-pack abs, or he doesn't have, you know, I don't care. Okay, you can not want to be with somebody because of that. Don't tear them down. That's just your preference. But man, the way we throw shade at each other in our community is out of control. It's out of control. And I know as a black man, you probably have experienced it. No blacks, no femmes, no Asians, none of this, none of that, no chubs, no bald, blah, blah. Really? Okay, I get it. That's your preferences. But you can just say, hey, you seem like a nice guy, but you're not really my type. Good enough.
And the dating apps are weaponized for that, for that. Mm-hmm. You know, they will rip you apart, mm-hmm. You know?
I think the other thing in answer to your question, Wyatt, is to, mm-hmm. You know, I'm a guy, I'm 60 years old. I came out late in life, but the journey has shown me so much to like see others, especially younger guys. I love when a younger gay man enters my world that I can say, mm-hmm. Hey, can I give you some insight? Not, you know, I ask permission, number one. Let me give you some insight of what I saw and learned. Let me give you something you might want to try. Because if you can give somebody else that piece of comfort, knowing they're not alone, helping them see, helping them understand. And maybe that's why I do the work I do. I love being that coach. Not that we, quote, give advice, but I guide people, help them see what they can't see in themselves. Mm-hmm. It heals the world. Every gay person who can come out when they're meant to come out without feeling, oh my gosh, I've lost too much time, to me is like the angels getting their wings at Christmas time. You know, when they get to actually fly at the time that is best for them, that's a beautiful moment. And I don't care if it's at 7, 14, 60, 35, 20, I don't care what the age is. Giving them that ability to be fully supported and say, bravo for you. How can I help you? How can I continue to support you? If we can change that dynamic in the world, we can start to heal the planet around all this stigma that LGBTQ folks get, especially, I hate saying especially gay men, but I think gay men get hit really hard because you're masculine, you're supposed to be a man, you're supposed to be this. And of course, everybody thinks about sexuality about one thing, what's between the legs and what are you doing in the bedroom? It's so much more. Right. It is so much more.
Yeah. And too many of us run away from the so much more.
Mm-hmm. I want to chat a little bit. One other quick thing that, since you asked that question,
sure.
Like, what can we do?
Right.
I'm going to invite, and this kind of steps into, you know, the racism and sort of thing. Check your privilege.
Sure.
Check your freaking privilege as a gay person. Check your privilege Absolutely. As somebody who has, hey, I mean, I actually had this conversation with a young gay man not long ago. And I'm talking young, like 24, 25. He's like, I just don't get what the big deal is. And I literally turned to him and I said, you know what? I'm going to invite you to check your privilege. At 25 years old, there's guys my age, and I'm not just referring to myself, there's guys my age and older who paved the way for you to be able to say, I don't understand why it's such a big deal. Let me roll you back 30 years, 20 years, 40 years, 50 years, you would not be able to say what you're saying right now. So please check your privilege and remember who's gone before you and who's coming up behind you. Because where you get to sit right now, and not that the world is a completely open and welcoming space, but when we check our privilege of being, I check my privilege all the time as a gay man. I am a white, cisgendered gay man. I can walk down the street with Wyatt and nobody's going to know I'm gay. Probably not nobody's going to know he's gay either. But man, they sure the heck are going to know Wyatt's black. He can't hide that. And not that I'm hiding being gay, but I can walk and nobody knows any different until I go, hey girl. They're like, where the heck did that come from? Which I don't even do that very often.
And Rick, you're absolutely right. And another thing that bugs me is that too many of us, we don't know our history.
Yes.
And we don't want to know our history. You know, we're so busy, you know, on TikTok and everything like that. And there's nothing wrong with it, you know, but we don't know our history. We don't know enough of it. Because if we did, we would appreciate things and have a whole different viewpoint. Yeah.
So I think that's one of those things when we appreciate it and check our privilege of where we are in our journey and we help somebody else see where they are and support them, it becomes such a different way of going through this.
Absolutely. I want to chat a little bit about your book, Frankly, My Dear, I'm Gay, a late bloomer's guide to coming out. Can you tell us a little bit about it and give us some takeaways?
Sure. It was, something that I had never thought I'd write. And then I thought, you know what, I think I want to write it. But it started out as quote, kind of memoir. I'm like, I don't, of course, at the time I thought I was like one of the few guys who'd ever been married and come out of the closet late in life. I hadn't done my research until I came out of the closet. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm surrounded by guys who've been through the same thing, right? But I was actually getting certified as a coach at the same time. I'm like, well, what if I wrote it a little bit differently? Still tell my story, some of the key points, the religious piece, the parental piece, the friends piece, like the work sort of stuff. But at the end of each of those chapters, here's some work stuff you can do. Here's some personal development exercises you can do. So that it's kind of memoir, but it's also memoir and here's some activities to help you work through each of those sections.
Okay.
I feel very proud of it. It probably needs a complete rewrite at this point. It's been out 9 years. I don't know, 10 years, not quite 10 years, probably 8 or 9 years at this point. But it was as much for me as it was for anybody else because I finally released even more. Yes, there's times I still sit down, I'll read through it. Like every so often I'll read through it, read something on a video or something. And I'm like, what the heck was I thinking there? But it's funny. I'll read something like that. And then somebody will say that, oh, wow, that really helped me. I think that's the beauty of when we put, whether it's a podcast like you and I are doing right now, Wyatt, and your beautiful podcast and the book that you just came out with. I mean, I have to say, those your listeners who didn't know Wyatt was on my podcast not long ago, there were so many comments I got about, oh my gosh, this is so prevalent. So prevalent. People don't realize how much more we have in common than we have different in our experiences. And that's why I feel proud about the book.
And you should, because, it's not easy to write a book.
No.
It's not.
No.
It's hard work. It's hard work.
Yeah.
Wow. You have something called the Signature 6-step process. What's that about? Give us a 411 on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as I was working through everything, the book was already out. Life Uncloseted, the podcast was out. It was the Coming Out Lounge. We had just changed it. And I'm working with a marketing person because I'm a marketing branding guy. That's my background. But I'm like, I am just way too close to everything I'm trying to do right now. And we talked about, is there a signature system you use? I'm like, no, I just do what I do. I was trained. Obviously, I was certified as a coach. It was not like, oh, let's just sign up. I spent 18 months getting certified. But I never really thought about what's my process. And she kept pushing me. And I'm like, okay, well, people keep saying, well, what's the process you put somebody through? And I had already defined my brand as no fears, no excuses, no apologies. That kind of was the backbone of the brand.
I like that.
And then one day, speaking on a stage, some words started coming out of my mouth. I said, what's interesting is every one of us starts in a place of confusion. But as that confusion starts to wear off, it's because we've gotten curious about what we need to figure out. But interestingly enough, as this happened for me in my world, whether it was coming out of the closet or getting laid off and finally deciding to start my own business, the curiosity that was answering the questions and the confusion I had was going away. But I needed the courage to move forward. And even as I stepped into the courage to move forward, the thing that was missing was my commitment. But the more I thought about that, and as I started to build this brand and this business and, things were going pretty good, I'm like, what is it I'm really doing with people who are coming out of the closet? Yes, I'm helping them quit being confused, getting the questions, so getting super curious, having that courage to move forward, committing to themselves. But you can have all that going on, but if you don't have the confidence to move forward and keep going, you're never going to get there. But it takes one other thing, which is the consistency. And this all happened on a stage. I had none of this. I still believe this was divine intervention, divine download happening in the moment. I got off the stage, shook hands, said all this stuff to people there. I couldn't wait to get in my car because I wanted to call my marketing gal and say, hey, I just had this concept. And she listened like, yeah, the 6 C's, that kind of works. You confusion, curiosity, courage, commitment, confidence, and consistency. Said it sounds really good to me. So I'm driving home from LA. I lived in Riverside area of Los Angeles. Hour and a half drive on a good day, 2 hours on a bad day, 5 hours on a really bad day. I had a lot of time to think. And it was one of those days that it was a 3 hour drive home. I'm like, okay. Literally wide in the middle of that drive, I'm like, wait, this all goes together. If you are dumping your excuses, the way you get past the excuse making is you have to get out of confusion and get curious so you can quell those excuses. But to confront those fears, you need courage and commitment to keep it happening. But if you're going to actually live unapologetically as who you are, it takes confidence and consistently showing up as who you are. And I literally had the shakes in the car as this all unraveled. I'm like, this becomes my thing. I do this with people coming out of the closet. I'm like, does that work? Those 6 steps? Yeah, that's kind of what I do. If I'm working with somebody who's coming out to say, I want to go be an entrepreneur and I want to leave my cubicle and I want to go, does this work? It works. If I want to work with somebody who's like, I just want to build some more confidence, does the 6-step process work? And before I knew it, every way I was doing this, I've taken this into corporate settings, helping people develop amazing customer service programs. How do you develop a customer service program to really serve your clients? You got to get out of the confusion, get curious, get committed and courageous and confident about what you're doing and consistently. I'm like, boom, I had my process. And I'm handing that to your listeners today in a very quick fashion. But if you really take the 6 steps and think about anything you come up against in your life that you're struggling with, it's because you're confused. You need to ask the right questions and get curious. You have to have the courage to move forward. You got to stay committed to it. It's going to help if you have that little dose of confidence to keep you going, and you have to consistently keep showing up for it. And if it doesn't work, you kind of step back. Where's the break? I have found this little process of mine works pretty darn good. And people really grow from it.
Rick, thank you. Rick, my man, thank you for that. That's powerful. And it's a lot of it too is common sense, but it's so powerful the way you put it all together. I'm gonna call you Mr. Podcaster because look, you're Mr. Podcaster. You have 2 podcasts.
Yeah.
One is Life Uncloseted.
Yeah.
The other one is 40 Plus, Gay Men, Gay Talk. So why 2 different podcasts, and just like, what's the mission? What are you accomplishing with the podcast?
Well, first thing, and this is going to be very self-centered, it's my joy factor. It's my joy. It is the one space, even when I'm on somebody else's, it's my one space that I literally say, God gave me the voice to do this. Not just because everybody says, Rick, you got a great voice. Okay, I appreciate that. But I love the fluidity of this, that I can take things and run with it, that I found this is where I do get to use my voice. I get to reach thousands and hundreds of thousands of people in my podcast. I have fun doing it. The mission is to free people to both ways, living their life without apologies. I happen to have started with Life Uncloseted. That was the original. We just passed the 600 mark a week ago, so pretty long running show. The Gay Men Gay Talk one came out of starting a new podcast called 40 Plus Real Men Real Talk. And it started literally a few months before the pandemic because I wanted to work with men in general, because I have this burning desire to work with men. No, I'm not turned on by all men, well, maybe most men, but I just want to help guys be better men. And we get into the pandemic, and I started holding these once a month, like get-togethers, because, hey, we're all holed up in our houses, right? So let's get on Zoom and let's connect. And I started noticing that the bulk of the guys that were showing up from the 40 Plus Real Men Real Talk podcast group were gay. And I thought, this is interesting. So my marketing had started kicking in, like, what is it about the brand that, and I realized a lot of these guys knew me as Mr. Life Uncloseted, Mr. Coming Out Coach, all this sort of stuff. But this is a different market. And so finally, I had the nerve to finally say, I don't want to offend anybody here, but we had done our second or third month of the Zoom calls. I said, I'm curious. It seems a lot of you are from my gay community. Hands went up. I'm like, okay, so why are you listening to this podcast? Well, we like it when you do stuff that we as gay men could. And if you don't do something that gay men would listen to, then we just don't listen. That was my moment, Wyatt, to listen to my audience. I'm like, you know what? Why am I trying to go do something that is outside of my scope? Within a week, literally, I got off that call. I had 2 podcasts already pre-recorded. I'm like, I'm going to let those run. And within a week, I had rebranded the whole thing to 40 Plus Gay Men Gay Talk. I came on and did a solo show after those 2. Like, here's something I discovered. I need to be true to myself. I can't save the world. And that kind of set the tone. And literally that one took off, and we're at 259 episodes or something like that with that one. And it brings me pure joy. It helps run my business in so many different ways. But more than anything, it helps me reach somebody who maybe that's the only thing that's going to give them a lifeline. That's why I do it.
Well, I'm so glad you do it. And, recently I was on 40 Plus Gay Men Gay Talk, and I had people after the episode, Rick, I had people across social media contacting me. So thank you, Mr. Clemons.
Well, you're welcome. And thank you for doing what you're doing and being so, that episode was a powerful episode. I get a lot of people commenting. The comments just keep coming. It's interesting. And every so often I re-release something on social media for the ones that I felt like, hey, they really had impact, because that tells me, hey, things are really good. Things are really good. So let's go release it. Let's make sure we do a little push and stuff. And when we bring these topics to the airwaves or anywhere, it can be TV, podcast, radio, wherever it might be, that people are like, I can't believe we're actually talking about this, but I'm really glad we're talking about this. That's when we have a home run. Because it's the things we need to be talking about.
My audience. Yeah, because my episode on your show was about intimate partner violence and abuse, and it's no joke. And I just want to thank you again for giving me another forum to talk about that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for giving me this forum to share my world, my story, and to get to see you again, man. It's always good to hang with you.
You're the man.
Right back at you, brother.
You're the man with the plan. So let me ask you this. What do you have? It's almost 2024, right?
Yep.
So what do you have going for 2024? You got stuff going on already?
I do.
Scheduled?
I am currently shopping my second book. Shopping at the agents and publishers. And that's the focus for 2024. I want to get it out there in the world, whether I get a publisher or I self-publish. It's done. It's written. This holiday season, I'm lucky that I have a really cool job where I get a whole week off between Christmas and New Year's to do nothing, but I won't do nothing. I'm going to literally work on my list of publishers and agents that I'm reaching out to. And when January third, fourth, fifth hits, somewhere one of those days, there's a whole bunch of emails that are going to be going out because I believe in this book. I feel very blessed. I've had about 30 people already read it who've given me amazing feedback, and I'm ready for it to be released. I'm ready for it. And it's different than my first one, but it's got the same sassy, in your face, upfront, tell it like it is. It is for the masses. It's called Unapologetic, and it's basically my brand. How to live a life of no excuses, no fears, and no apologies. So that's what I got. That's all I'm focusing on for the year. So
you must, when it's published, you must come back.
Absolutely. I would love to, man. I would love to. So.
Okay, your social media, how can we connect with you, follow you, all of that?
Oh, I don't do social media at all. No, I'm kidding.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding.
You scared the hell out of me. I said, what's he doing?
No. Social media. I do videos on Instagram. You can find me at the Rick Clemons on Instagram. I do X, Twitter, kind of. I don't spend as much time there. I just kind of post automated stuff. My website is Rick Clemons, CLEMONS.com. We just got a facelift on. I'm really proud of the new website. But Instagram and TikTok too. I mean, I play around in TikTok, but Instagram is where most everything happens for me. And I just love being out there and seeing what resonates with people. So, and you've just helped me hopefully resonate with a few others, and I can't wait to promote this podcast when it comes out. So thanks so much for having me, man.
Listen, it's my pleasure. Mr. Rick Clemons, thank you for dropping by. Wyatt, it was a blast.
Thank you. Bless you.
I appreciate you. Yeah. So y'all, there you have it. You can find the official Wyatt podcast page at WyattEvans.com, the go-to destination for LGBTQ plus news, features, commentary, and entertainment. WyattEvans.com is visited by more than 100 countries on the regular. All I can say to that is, hey, baby. And at WyattEvans.com, you'll find my smoking hot, HAWT hot, Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. And as you just saw on the top, the newest installment is called Shattered. I said Shattered. And y'all, Shattered is full of action, danger, intrigue, sexually charged situations, passion, and all of the wonderful elements that you're used to in the Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. So get your new copy of Shattered. Now, you can follow me, your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans, all across social media, and poof, is right there for you to peruse, like TikTok and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And if you have any comments or whatever, you can hit me up at WyattOnAir@gmail.com. So until next time, y'all, woof, goddammit, woof, 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 woof. I said, woof.